We did it! We're live! We made it! That's all I can play before I get in trouble. Welcome to Meet the Tanukis! My name is PJ Metz. We're here for another amazing episode. We're going to be talking to someone super fantastic today. My brain's like, go! Like, just get to it. But also, I want to, there's a format to this show, right? There's a way things are done. We banter first. I banter with myself. As you heard from the beginning, it is Star Wars Day. It's May 4th, and May the 4th be with you. And I don't know, I love Star Wars. I feel like it's gone beyond the sort of oh, it's only for this kind of person, because it was one of the most successful movies ever when it came out. I never bought into the idea that Star Wars is for nerds or you're weird if you like Star Wars, because especially at this point, when Disney Plus has 8 Star Wars shows and it's one of the most popular franchises of all time, it's not a nerdy thing anymore. Yeah, I argue almost it never was. And that's on gatekeeping cultural touchstones, y'all. Today's episode it's not because of Star Wars. We scheduled it and I was like, oh, that's the Star Wars. And everyone's going to be putting lightsaber emojis on Slack and everyone's going to be tweeting about it and all that good stuff. So it's a very fun day, and it's a lot of fun. I always like the next day, Revenge of the 5th. I know it's Cinco de Mayo as well, but I always thought Revenge of the 5th was always exciting. So this is a show. It's called Meet the Tanukis. I work at GitLab. I don't know if you can tell. We got our new logo up here. It's a little rounder. He's cute. Wonder if that makes it easier. Oh, that does make it easier to see, actually. Fantastic. But that was debuted last week. Brand new Tanukis, rounded. He's got some cool little DevOps Easter egg design secrets in there. Very nice, very good. But I still got the old shirt because I'm repping retro gear today. Very important. But this show, as it exists, is all about meeting team members at GitLab. And the whole point is to meet people who are just doing work at GitLab, doing amazing things, and to meet the person and what they do here and find out what they like, who they are. It's not just work. If this was a meeting, we wouldn't be doing it live on Twitch. Instead, we do it live on Twitch. We have a thing at GitLab called Coffee Chats. I consider this an extended coffee chat. And today, I'm very excited to be chatting and talking with an amazing person who reached out to me and said, I saw your show. I think it's fun. I got to be on it. And I was like, well, I've seen you, and you're awesome, and you're going to be on it. And we scheduled it, and we're here. And everyone, please welcome. I'm so excited. Hailey Pobanz.
I was thinking doing a lightsaber, but
I should have had a lightsaber sound ready.
Oh, the best way.
Okay, well that's all I can play. We're gonna make our own lightsaber.
I'm sorry, George Lucas is calling.
That's right. Oops, sorry, Georgie. So, welcome. First off, it makes me excited when people see the show and go, "Oh, I want to be on it," and then you created an issue and you didn't even talk to you, just bam, issue. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want. So now that you're here, and now that we're live in front of, according to this, 4 people, why don't you tell everyone who you are?
Yeah. So I'm Hailey. I am, who am I? Gosh, it's whenever someone asks you to fill out, can you please give us a short bio? It's the hardest thing in the world to write. It's much easier to talk about somebody else. But yeah, I'm Hailey. I've been with GitLab for 3.5 years. I started as an individual contributor. I'm now leading 2 teams, and they're growing like crazy. And I'm an American, which you can tell from my accent, but I've actually lived in the Netherlands for 6.5 years. So my Dutch, I have to say, is quite good at this point. I've got a dog and a kid, and I say the dog first because he's older and it's only fair to him. I think that's a good little Sparks version of me. People were like, you name your dog first. I was like, of course I do.
Yeah, that's the order of the kids.
He's my oldest child. So
that's amazing. Oh my gosh. So let's talk about. There's a million things to talk about. First off, let's talk about Netherlands. So American by accent, You said your Dutch is great, and I think I feel like you have to speak some Dutch now. I'm not going to be able to judge this.
Wat wil je? Ik heb geen idee.
Oh my god.
Ja, ik kom from America. Ik woon in Nederlands. En het is een moeilijke taal, maar ik spreek goed.
That's so good! So this whole journey of learning a second language, did you have any did you speak any Spanish or French or anything before, or was it?
I was one of those typical American kids who took Spanish for ages and then went to college and went to university and took German.
That's my exact same thing I did.
Like it was useless. Like all my Spanish gone. And then I got to the Netherlands and I thought, well, I know a bit of German that'll help me, and it didn't.
Nope.
It didn't at all.
Similarities. It's not.
It looks the same, but it sounds very different. So it was quite an adventure, but it honestly is the immersion. It's immersion, right? Like the more you can speak it, because taking a class, I don't know, I'm an apply yourself person. So the more I actually speak it in day-to-day life, the better it's gotten. So, which isn't always easy to do in the Netherlands. They speak English, so.
Oh yeah, and that's something that my friend who knew German, he was like, so I went to Germany and studied abroad, but when I was there, everyone wanted to speak English to me, and I was like, no, I need to practice my German. They were like, oh, your German is fine. I'm going to practice my English. And then their English is amazing. They're like, the vocabulary, it's not so good, but this is very, it's an expressive situation. And I'm like, that's good vocab. What are you talking about?
The emotion, I feel like, is a little more straightforward in English, and it's so much harder to get those nuances in other languages.
Oh, for sure. It takes a long time to get to it, So 6 years you've been living there. Why did you move to the Netherlands?
So I was, not to age myself, but it was like the year I was turning 30, and I had been living in San Francisco for 8 years. I was working in tech, and my best friends were getting married, and I was sort of reaching that like mid-quarter year life crisis where I'm like, what do I want to do with my life? And I had an international role where I was working with our team in the US at the tech company I was at, and our team in Europe. Had an opportunity to come out and work with the team here. And of course, our European headquarters was in Amsterdam. So I had my first visit. It was in April of 2015. I think 2015 is right. And I spent 2.5 weeks here. And I always say I fell in love. And people were like, oh, with a person? I was like, no, with a city. Amsterdam was just everything I wanted. And that was what I was in love with. So when a few weeks later, my boss said, well, we got a headcount open for another sales engineer, and we want them to be based in Amsterdam to work with our European team. And I said, well, there's a lot more candidates in San Francisco, so why don't I take the job in Amsterdam and I'll hire my replacement here? And so that was it. 3 months later, 3 suitcases, and now those 3 suitcases turned into like a big house, a kid, a dog, a partner.
I mean, a whole life lived was waiting for you. It's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh man, so this is funny. I'm just starting to realize kind of the similarities we have. First off, you were like, so I've been living in Amsterdam for 6 years, and you said, well, when did this happen? Oh, well, I was 30, and I'm like, oh, we're the same age. Okay, cool. Then you were like, it was about 2015 when I went and decided to move internationally. I too went and moved internationally in 2015. I went and lived in Korea for a year and a half. So cool. This is kind of crazy that we're like living these similar lives, and then now we've intersected. Like,
it was destined. It was meant to be, PJ.
That's right. I'm your density.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you moved to Amsterdam. You said you were working in tech, and you said specifically sales engineer.
Yeah.
What is your background? Like, let's go way back. Let's go to college. Let's go to post-college. What was your degree? What were your jobs? How do you get to be a sales engineer?
Yeah, so I took a very non-normative route, and I think that defines a lot of my life, of taking a non-normative route. So I actually got my master's in geriatric social work, so I was working at a nursing home for quite some time, and I got really burnt out. Like, I was 24 years old, I was in a director role, and I realized that what I needed from my job, it needed to be more than what I'm passionate about in terms of like I think social work really identified like how I felt about people, what I believe people should have, and that support. And I realized I needed more in my role because otherwise I would give too much and really it just wasn't healthy. So in my mind, I thought I had a friend, San Francisco startups. It's like I had a friend who was in customer success, and I was speaking to him about it, and I was like, oh. So when I interviewed for the role, I thought I kind of pitched it to the CEO. It's like CEO is like, it's the social work of tech, right? Like my job as a customer success manager is to understand the customer and what their needs are and make sure that they are empowered to use our platform to its fullest capabilities, right? Which is social work, but in a tech space. And it actually worked really well. And I found that driving then I realized that I'm quite competitive. And I like to talk to people. So it was sort of a natural route into a customer focused role, which was like customer success, tech sales purely. And it was definitely not the route I thought I would take, but in the end, I feel like I leverage more of those skills and what I learned now than I ever did before.
I mean, there's a part in that story where if you're watching live, you saw me go like, because something just clicked and made sense for me. You absolutely make sense as a salesperson because you talk to a CEO, you're like, well, listen, like geriatric social work is basically customer success. And they were like, damn, you're right. And you were right. And that's like, you sold me on it just like, I'm ready to hire you too. Like, that's fantastic. But it's so funny how the things we think we're doing when we're younger. I mean, like you decide at like 17 where you're going to go to school. Like you go to school and then you're like, I guess I have to pick a degree. And it's kind of interesting how not only does it not always lead where we think it's leading, but those very skills that we learned back then can come and help us later on if we're switching careers.
Yeah, definitely. I was talking to someone else about this. I mean, in Europe, it's a little bit different, right? But I mean, my experience in American school is like in middle school already or high school, you're already thinking about like, this is the path you should be on. This is the career you should take. Right. And I don't even remember who I was at, 16, let alone, 20 years later.
I do, and I don't like that 16-year-old. But yeah, there's a lot. There seems to be, especially in America, like a very prescribed path you're meant to take. And that's why when you said it was a non-normative, a non-normal route, I love it. I don't have a normal route. My friends don't have normal route. No one really has a straight path that I know. I feel like most people have, like, we wander around,
And I think it's so important to highlight that, especially as like me being in a leadership role now, and I'm a hiring manager, that I like to see that. I like to see diversity in people, right? Like they talk about the best journalists. They don't start with journalism school. They learn something else first, and then they want to write because you need something to write about. So I do think that there are other things that bring a unique skill set into every role. You just have to think about how do the skill sets I have fit into that. It's more fun that way, I think, as well.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. So here you are. You've moved to Amsterdam. You are there, and you're working as a sales engineer. And what? Because we're not at GitLab yet, right? We're just you're living in Amsterdam, working for a completely different company. I don't even care who it is, because like GitLab is where it's at. But so what happens? Take us from moving to Amsterdam to working at GitLab.
Yeah, it was a very interesting journey. That tech company I was at for about 4 years, and it just went through a lot of growth, hypergrowth, layoffs, hypergrowth, layoffs. What are we doing? We're refiguring. And I was at a point where I had fit in so many roles, and I had worked myself into a place where I was indispensable at the company, but I didn't feel there was growth opportunity. And I was, I was still in my 20s. I was ready for more. I wanted that growth opportunity. And so I set my eyes on startups and looking for that next opportunity and starting to grow something new. And so I ended up at I did a short stint actually at a 5-person company. And my number one piece of advice is if you're going to join that early on, you should be one of the founders. You should eat, drink, sleep, dream about that product and fully believe in it, because you're going to have to give your blood, sweat, and tears. And it was not what I had expected. And so I said, you know what? It was around the 6-month mark, like, we're not aligned. This isn't working. I'm going to do the like typical American white girl thing. And I'm going to go to India for a month and I'm going to do a yoga teacher training and I'm going to find myself. Which is, it really is, but it was a phenomenal experience. And when I came back, I started another tech job where I was one of the first 20 people. Like, I learned a lot, but I did learn what I was looking for in terms of the stage, and I wanted it to be a little bit more founded. And so I started.
5 people is wild. It's hyper.
The product doesn't really exist yet, right? Everyone is just kind of winging it. And I realized that I wasn't at the point in my career where I was ready for that. I was ready to make that commitment to the work that you have to put in, the salary cut, right? All those things. So it was definitely a good lesson for me.
Yeah. So there we are. There's the 5 people startup, trip to India, find yourself. 20 people startup. So, like 4 times as many people, that's 4 times as big a company. So but what you said made a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people who are in tech, no matter what the job is, if you're looking for a startup, if you're looking for an enterprise company, it's important to know where you want to slide into the company, right? So first 5 is a ton of work. First 20 is a lot of work, but it's a bit different. So you decided it was that worked better for you. So did that work better for you, the 20-person company?
Yeah, at first it did, for sure. Like, I came on to basically build out the customer side, so the account management side. They had just started an enterprise product. They did a freemium model, and I joined with a VP of sales to start running this, and it was exciting, right? We were in a space where the customers wanted to talk to me, and I learned the product so fast because customers would speak to me every day. Double the company's revenue in less than a year, was feeling like, actually, this person that I hired, I want to promote her to manage the team because I'm cruising along as an individual contributor. I was happy. I was cruising. And then that turned into, then I found out I was pregnant. And that's like, enter sound effect right there, PJ. Like,
hold on, I got you.
Wait, get one. Yeah, like, that's literally what it felt like, right? It was, I was driving my career. I was an individual contributor. I was traveling all over Europe. I was doing well. I was excited. And then it was, oh shit, I'm pregnant. And it was unplanned, unexpected. And it turned my world upside down.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big change.
Yeah. It's a big changes.
Sometimes a lot of adjectives, a lot of the same adjective is what you need. So unexpected, unplanned, and you're working at this startup with the VP of sales, and this is, I'm invested now. I need to hear the rest of the story.
So I had a very difficult pregnancy, and especially in the beginning, I was really, really sick. And so I ended up just having to work from home a lot. And I was just every day, like, telling my boss, like, I'm sorry, I'm really sick. I'm just going to work from home. I'm going to work from home. And it was almost like 2 weeks of me working from home. And I woke up one morning, I think I was about 10 weeks pregnant at that point. So, like, before you tell really anybody in a lot of cases, right? And I went into the office and I just kind of sat down and told my boss, I was like, hey, it's really early, but I'm just going to tell you because I'm not feeling well and I just want you to know why, right? Like, dedicated to this job, doing the thing, but I'm going to maybe need to work from home because I don't feel well and I'm pregnant. The next time I came into the office, it was a little situation. I got pulled into boss and CEO's office and was let go on the spot.
Jesus.
Which was a gut punch, and my stomach already felt horrible, and it was a gut punch.
I'm already working on growing this baby here, and he's giving me a hard time.
Yeah. It was because in a 20-person startup, like, I drank all of the Kool-Aid. Like, I was drowning in the Kool-Aid. I loved what I was doing. I loved our customers. I believed in it. I was probably a little too emotionally invested in the company, where you kind of take those things, you take everything a little personally. And so that was really tough. But I think as someone, and I think anybody who's been through any struggle in their life, which I think every person has at some point, what gets you out of that hole is like the positive that comes out of it. Because there's always something positive. Like life goes like this. And I think we have to, it's a good reminder that like, oh yeah, eventually I'm going to be on top of that again.
Down to go up. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So
people in the chat, I mean, is that even legal? Like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, my brain immediately goes, I don't think you're allowed to do that. But then I remember,
there's at will employment. Like in the Netherlands, you have temporary contracts at first, and people, that's basically the freedom to let someone go or to leave a company for no reason. Right. So they don't have to give a reason, but the reason was it was a little too
loose with the rules, probably.
The timing was a little bit too convenient for it to be anything but. However, talk about getting back up that hill. Because I think that was like the biggest change for me. Because then I realized, like, first thing I thought was, well, I need to be able to work remotely. Right? Like, I know it's something we talk about at GitLab all the time, and it's like everyone knows GitLab for remote, but I'm open and telling this story because it changed my life. The ability to work remotely. That was how I initially found GitLab, was looking for roles where I had that flexibility, where I could work from home. And then of course how you hear people talk about in every single interview, if you're a hiring manager, then I found your handbook. And for me, I just remember like, it's like number one thing. I read the handbook, but it's true. Like it's kind of like our real world manifesto of like everything that we do. And there were some things that really aligned with me. And I feel pretty lucky that I had that opportunity. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I can imagine the sort of like the excitement of going, well, I want to work remote, and then finding a company that not only has remote work, but they're like, also, we take it really seriously, and we want you to know it's not just, oh, we work remotely. It's we're finding the best way to work remotely, and we have a team of people whose job it is to make remote work. So like that's got to be exciting. So that's 3.5 years ago. Are you still pregnant when you get the job at GitLab?
I'm still pregnant. It is early in it, and I'm terrified. I'm terrified to tell anyone.
Well, I mean, look at what just happened at the last job. They were like, nope, no
like
pregnant
way too
ladies
soon
allowed
PTSD.
here.
Yeah. It was, and as an American as well, like it's, women lose jobs or they don't get hired for jobs because they're pregnant or they're thinking about having a family, and I was just terrified. I was terrified.
Or even the boss thinks that you might want a family, so they're less likely to promote you. They're like, yeah, but what if she wants to start a family? That's my American manager voice.
What if she wants to start a family? Whereas let's promote this dad because he's a good dad.
He's a good dad who works hard here.
Exactly. Precis. That's where I want to say my Dutch. Precis. Precisely. Yeah, it was. I do have to say though, I had an amazing boss from the get-go, and I was like,
from the get-go.
It was time from the get-go. Is that like probably?
No, I tried to make a joke like from the get-go, like GIT. It was good.
It was a funny get-go. Joke. Oh, budum-ching.
I promise it was a good joke. Thank you.
It was great. I love it.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Please, pregnant at GitLab, great boss.
Great boss. I sat down. It was 20 weeks. I'm like, it's time now. Now is when I should tell people. And I was so afraid, and he sensed it, and he's like, you should be excited. Like 3 months off, 4 months off, that's nothing. People take that time off all the time. People take that kind of time off all the time. Your job is secure. We're invested in you. I was like, what? The company's invested in me, even though I'm going to leave for months?
That's like, confusing.
And I'll never forget, because then I decided to actually announce it publicly to the rest of my team and sales leadership. This was back when like EMEA enterprise sales was 5 people. I think it's like 35 now. Yeah. And so it was like McBee, our CRO, on the call, and I'm going into my QBR presentation of like the quarter ahead, and it's like a picture of an ultrasound, and I put it out there, and it was freeing in a way, right? Like it
Yeah.
felt good. I was allowed to celebrate it. I was allowed to be excited about it and still work hard at my job. And it was, I don't know, that was something that I had never experienced in my life. And it
Mm.
really was, it was cool. I mean, cool is like not a good word, get me a
No, but
thesaurus, but it was cool.
it's absolutely correct for that situation because it requires a place that, first off, made you feel comfortable enough to do something like that.
Yes.
Second,
Yeah.
that you knew you were going to be supported. And third, like, look how it's paid off. Like, 3.5 years later, you're a manager of 2 teams. Like,
Yeah.
this is when they said we're investing in you for the long term. They're like, what's 4 months compared to what we think you're going to do? And that just
Yeah.
feels so secure, I think.
It's a nice feeling. And
Mhm.
I think it's like GitLab has a nice balance of having a lot of elements of a startup in the sense that you can really control your destiny, right? If you want to see change, open an issue. Like
Mhm.
we really do that, and it has that, but then also that sense of security. And combining those two things together, I think, has really allowed me to flourish. And like one of the things in interviews, I think when I interview people, one of the questions they have for me that I always love is like, why do you stay at GitLab? What is it that you love about GitLab? And I think I'm not the only person that would say this, is like that feeling that I can actually be my authentic self at work. And that's
Yeah.
going to be acceptable and applauded. And it's going to allow me to be successful because we all want to be able to be successful as our authentic selves. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's really cool.
It's hard to find a place where you feel comfortable being authentic. And once you do find a place, there's the additional challenge of, well, I haven't been able to be authentic, I feel like, elsewhere, and so now I need to figure out how to be authentic, and it can be a struggle. But
Yeah.
that's when I think of like culture fit or value add or culture add or whatever the buzzword's going to be. I think of a place where it's going to be cool that I have a child's background that is actually not for children. It's me. Like, this is me, and I'm a little weird, and I'm a little bit,
Yes.
out there and pastel and neon, but like, I want a place where that's okay. At least okay, at best celebrated. And I feel like GitLab does a good job of celebrating it without turning into the we're all a family here kind of culty vibes. Because I think they do a good job of that balance of like, we know we're not your family. In fact, please go be with your family, right?
Yes. Or if you write family, hey, GitLab family in Slack, it says,
That's right.
This is
Nope.
a GitLab team, right? These are
That's-
your, team members.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. So this whole journey brings you from, well, actually, let's talk about that move from individual contributor to manager,
Sure.
because
Yeah.
I'm very early in my career. This is my first job in tech. I used to be a teacher, and when you're a teacher, you're either a teacher or you become an administrator. So for my whole life, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to teach until, I'm 72 years old and the kids are coming to class in holograms or whatever. I don't know. And I just thought that's what it was going to be. So now I'm here and I'm like, oh, like I can decide, do I want to manage people? Do I just want to be, and this is a whole new world for me. So for you, what did that look like for you? What's the decision making? How do you get there?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good question. I think the decision making, I think it's thinking about, it's not to go back to the kid, but after I had a kid, like I think my priorities changed a bit. Like I had always wanted to be in leadership. And I think the reason for that, like, I don't know, some people, you have a draw to it from a young age is I think comes from my desire to be a social worker. Like I like to help people. And I do think that a good leader should want to help those that they manage. And then coming out of maternity leave and coming back into my individual contributor role, I kind of realized that I was at a point where GitLab was invested in me. I was invested in GitLab, but I kind of felt like my full skill set wasn't being taken advantage of. Like I felt like I could make a bigger impact in a different role, in a leadership position. And I think that was kind of that pivot point that I hit. So it was a little bit of, it's okay to say no to leadership and be an individual contributor, right?
Mhm.
Like I'd
Yeah.
done that in a previous role. I think it's great. It's also okay to kind of realize like you're at this point, right? Like the best leaders aren't necessarily the top performing reps, and the best reps are not always like it's not always in alignment. So I think you think about, for me, it was the skill sets that I wanted to be using every day, and I think that was what kind of sparked it for me. And yeah, that was kind of the big spark, and then really just like from there looking, like I actually went into the sales development team, and that was sort of like you're an enterprise sales rep and then you're going to go manage sales development. We worked together really well, but it was a totally different team, and I had a lot of ideas from being a Sal, from being that enterprise rep, and it was an exciting move to make for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. And that idea of, I think that traditionally when you think, and especially in like the American model, it's
Yeah.
you work and eventually you just become a manager, and that's the expectation. And
Yeah.
I think I feel like there's it might just be because like I'm at GitLab and they're not like, no, like don't manage if you don't want to manage, and they're not hiring
Yeah.
people just because they're top performers. This was also true of like teaching. Just because you're really smart at a subject and really good at a particular subject doesn't mean you can teach it very well. It just means you can do it very well. So finding a person who can be a good manager is more than just a person who's good at the job. So
Yeah. And I think there's like, I remember we were talking about it, a leadership team. It's like you get into a role, and you keep moving up until you reach a point where you're not competent enough to ever go above that point. And that's not a bad thing, but you want to make sure you stop where you can still be successful. And by successful, I don't mean just be able to hit your targets for whatever those targets are, but you also feel that challenge, right? You feel like you go into work every day still excited to do it, still wanting to achieve those things. So I think some people, I mean, in sales or in any other role, staying an individual contributor, especially at a company like GitLab, where you can participate in other things and can do other things, is a great place to be. Like, we always feel this push, like, okay, my year's up. What am I going to do next? Like, I think it's so much more fun to spend a little bit of time, and I want to be the best. Like, what am I going to be the best at? I want to have this legacy of go to Hailey because she's the best at negotiation, right? Like,
yeah,
it's that personal brand piece that I think is really important as well in roles. So it's there's always that tease because there's always more jobs, there's always people hiring, there's always that appeal. But I think as an individual, you have to think about what's right for me. What do I want to get out of this role?
right.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is an inspiring episode right now. I'm feeling really good. So you are coming from, when we're talking sales, this is a world that I know very little about, except when I go to buy a car. So that's my experience. But when we talk about sales, something that you brought up when we met before the show was that working in sales as a woman can be challenging for a variety of reasons. And it's something that you said, I really want to be able to talk about this. And so there is a sort of a social cultural picture of what sales is like, and it doesn't appear to be very feminine on its face. So tell us about that, your experience in sales as a woman.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when I was actually like woke up the other night thinking about our conversation and what I wanted to talk about with this too, because it's I think it's like, especially GitLab, but not especially GitLab, in general, it's changing, right? Like when I think about 12, 13 years ago, which is a ridiculous amount of time for me in my brain to have been working in tech, like it was that traditional, you had a sales floor, right? And it was like 30, 20-year-old dudes, I'll say dudes, men, and pretty much dudes, like just out of college, in their first job, like making 60 calls a day, 90 calls a day. And then eventually some of them got promoted to the AEs, and then it was the next level of dudes, and then the next level. And
the next level of dudes.
And there would be maybe one or two women in there, and you almost had to like keep up with the boys, right? Mm-hmm. You had to be one of the boys. And I think for me, as a highly sensitive individual who, ask anyone on my team, I probably cry regularly on team calls. For a long time in my tech career and in sales, it was like, no, I have to be like the boys. And I can be, right? Like I can definitely be one of the guys, but I realized that I think as I grew in my career that actually being more true to also the feminine side is super valuable,
Yes.
right? Like nowadays, how are we selling? How do we sell GitLab, right? It's not your car salesperson, it's not the 90 calls a day. It's building value and understanding what the customer needs and making sure that they believe that you're the best person to help them. And I'm like,
Yes.
women are really good at that. And it doesn't mean that all salespeople should be women now. It means that taking a look at it from that perspective is going to help accelerate everyone else. And
Yes.
I think before I get off my soapbox on this, like I think it's important to also do that in leadership and in sales leadership. Like for me, my goal was always sales leadership, and it was specifically for that. It was because I wanted to bring that feminine approach, and I wanted to bring an empathic approach to how I work, to how I saw leadership, to how I saw managing a team. And I think there's still a little bit of that ceiling in leadership across the board. But GitLab is the first company where I felt like I could speak up about those things. And instead of it being like, oh, Hailey the troublemaker, or oh, don't say that around Hailey because she's gonna play the sexist card. The amount of times on a male sales floor where I tried to say something and it was like, oh, Hailey, don't ruin the fun.
Hailey, come on. No, Lord.
Oh, Hailey, you don't be a party pooper. Party pooper. This is mom talk. But at GitLab, it was the opposite. It was, Hailey, how can we be better about that? Hailey, what can we do? Like, how does this work? It was something I had never seen before. And that's like really where I think that authentic vibe, that feeling of being able to be your authentic self. I said vibe because I see Yellowman there saying killing the vibe of the vibe.
Killing the vibe. Oh, come on. She's harsh on our vibe.
It was really rough. Like, that would be it. Like, oh, we were just having fun. I was like, yeah, but your fun is not someone else's fun. And we need to be mindful of that, right?
There is that, there's a, it exists. Like when you said the traditional, like the sales floor, like I immediately thought of Wolf of Wall Street, and like absolutely, there's women there, but it's in a way where like you're almost expected in order to fit in, and a lot of sales is connecting with that culture there, so you can be, because what happens is one salesperson's like, oh, this lead isn't working, I'm going to give it to someone I like. Right? This person can maybe take over and do better with it, or maybe this helps them out. And if they don't like you, they're not going to help you out, you know? So you're expected to like, to be a bro, one of the guys, the cool girl stereotype, right?
Yeah. I spent so much of my life trying to be that girl.
You were the cool girl, but not in, oh, you're a cool girl because you're one of the guys. You were doing your own thing, and you brought your own energy, and you brought your own vibe, which, like you said, now that's desired, and that's what we need in sales. That's what we need in the position that you're in now. So, like, you're absolutely right. You trailblazer, you.
Hey, there we go. If it helps, I mean, the goal is to just so we see more women in it, right? Like the commercial sales leadership team at GitLab, half of us are women, for sure. There was more women than men for a minute, and it's great, right? Like,
it's great.
That makes a huge difference. You need to be able to see people in those roles to feel like you can get there yourself. Like,
that's right. It's hard to picture yourself on a team if there's not someone like you on the team already. Absolutely. It's hard to be the first. You know what I mean?
It is.
It is, and I feel like you know that, but I don't know why I'm telling you. Hey, do you know what I mean? Like you lived it. It's your life, you know?
Yeah, I like to be the guinea pig. It's my ode to weirdness.
When you talk about that more feminine energy and that sort of like the more traditionally feminine like characteristics, using that to your advantage, you said that works really well at GitLab because you said you're an especially empathetic person. So you're making connections with people. You're not saying, here's the product, buy it, buy it, buy it. You're saying, here's the product, what do you need? Is there a place where these puzzle pieces fit? Like, and clearly you found success with it. Like, so what is that like, sort of balancing that feminine energy with sales, which still can be kind of a higher pressure job?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that like there's that misconception that like I mean, we're all masculine and feminine and knowing when to leverage those, like what fits for us and those things, right? But
It's a spectrum, y'all.
it's a spectrum, y'all, but I think knowing the value that you have or the potential, I mean, men every day, you know, like I think you kind of know intrinsically like the step ahead you can get in certain ways by being a man or a woman or this or that. And I think leveraging it in an intelligent way where it's bringing value. So I think when I started in tech and I was doing security at that company when I first moved, like when I would get on a security call, it would be old men and I caught them off guard. And that was actually like totally off guard, right? Like a young woman talking to me about the application security and like penetration tests, like all these things, right? But I realized that that's an advantage. Like catching people off guard is good in the sense that it disarms them. Like I think establishing rapport, key for that. Like that's one of the things that I think women tend to just in general, not women, I won't say women, take that back. I think that's more of like a feminine leaning thing that allows you to kind of get a customer to open up, right? If you want a customer to talk to you and engage, like you want them to feel comfortable and you want them to feel like you're listening to them. Not that you feel like it, but you are. You want to be listening to them.
I mean, yeah.
So I think, those are some of the things that have been super helpful. And combining that with, I think, my success background and social work background to just really like ask more questions. You know, how do you get there? The what, why, and I think that approach is refreshing as well.
Yes.
Right? Like
I like that word, refreshing.
I almost said cool, but you know, I gotta
use it. It's really cool, but like actually like refreshing. Yeah. It's like a nice cold Mountain Dew on a hot day. Shout out Mountain Dew. You haven't answered my text. Please call me. But yeah, that idea of being able to like catch them off guard, they sort of lower their defenses. And then that allows you to come in and say, and now I really want to listen to what it is that you need here and what it is you're looking for here. And you lower their defenses in order to get closer to what it is that they really want, as opposed to, well, I don't need this and you can't convince me and it's fine that we're here. Like it's a good technique. I think that's great. Listen, I want Mountain Dew too. Like check out my Twitter. I've been yelling at them for a year. I'm coming up on 1 year of tweeting at Mountain Dew every single day, asking them to send me free Mountain Dew Kickstart. We're really close, y'all. Stick with it. Maybe they'll send me something one day. I doubt it. It gets like 2 likes every day. So we had sales as a woman. We have sales management as a woman now. And again, as you progress higher up the ladder and you become the person that is showing that, you know, women and non-binary people can be in these positions, that it's not just for men. What does it look like now? Now you're in this leadership position and you're getting to mentor people and you're getting to choose who comes on the team and you're getting to teach people. How's that working for you?
I love it.
Yes, it's great. Listen, as a high school teacher, as an English teacher, I used to cry once a year in front of some of my students. I did it when reading Mother to Son by Langston Hughes to some freshmen. I did it while reading the last page of Gatsby to some juniors. I've done it while it happens once a year, and I'll just start crying, and then I'll be like, this happens every year, and the kids are like, oh man, he really did it. And I am 6'6", I'm 2 meters tall, I'm 270 pounds, and I'm like, so you guys get it, right? It's the best.
Can we normalize crying?
Can we normalize crying? I cry all the time. I cry reading books. I cry watching movies. Everyone.
Yes. It's so good. I think it's, but
I'm glad I got a tear out of you on this show. This feels pretty good. I got to be
it's,
honest.
I mean,
I
we're
did
just gonna have it. I do have to pause really
Yeah.
quickly for a side conversation. So if you're a Family Guy person, this is when they like bubble out and then you forget the storyline. The fun part about working at GitLab is you never know how tall people are, and then you meet them in person and you're like, huh?
Holy smokes! Yeah.
What? It's my favorite thing. It's my absolute favorite thing. But talking about growth and all these things, like I'll tell you right now, like the advice I gave to someone as well, saying stay in the role a little longer. Like make sure you feel like you're the expert on something. When I think about where I'm at today with my team and what we're doing, I'm like, I've barely scratched the surface. And I actually really love managing people earlier in their sales careers, like because I mean, selfishly, like you can make an impact and then you watch them grow. And I'm the type of person that like I get way more satisfaction to see someone on my team get promoted and promoted again than for me to get promoted and promoted again. So it's really fun to see that and to feel like you're actually making a difference in their professional but personal lives, because it's all connected. We can't deny that it's not. So I do think that there's an important way to connect that. Like the professional development can connect to the personal too. So
Absolutely.
I'm happy, and hopefully my team enjoys it too. But
I feel like a few of them have been in the chat talking about how much.
I think
love
so.
your
I think so. I've got my cheerleaders, which I appreciate.
We all need cheerleaders, right? That's exciting, and to be able to see people succeed is such a good feeling. And I think you're right that does tie back to you being a social worker and working with people who are very traditionally ignored or left behind, especially, and
Definitely
trying to create a better life for others is big 2022 energy. That's what we need now and for the rest of the time is lifting each other up and caring about each other, you know?
If we all did it.
I'm working on it. Because like when I'm in my car, I feel like I hate everyone around me, and I'm working on that.
Car's different. Me too. It's the only place I'm angry.
That's basically the Thunderdome out there. So you talked about when we did our pre-show chat, you talked about balance, and today is May the 4th. It's Star Wars Day, and there's a big thing in Star Wars about bringing balance to the Force. But for you, you've got remote work, you've got management, you've got a team that depends on you, you've got a kid, you've got a partner. What does balance?
Don't forget the dog.
And the dog! Oh my gosh, the most important child. I can't wait for your child to be like a teenager, be like, the dog was always a little more important to you. And they'll be like, Mom, you'll be like, listen.
Sorry.
The dog got fed first, I gotta say. So when we're talking about balance, dog, child, partner, work, fun, enjoying life at some point, what does balance look like in your life?
I think there's I'm gonna bring in a juggling, right? Like we're all just juggling a lot of things, and you can keep adding more. You can be like, yeah, I got this, 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 I got this. And I think balance is like letting some of those things fall, like knowing what you can let go of. And that's something that it took me a really long time to be okay with, because I'm one of those people like, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. No.
Yeah, I got you.
I can do it. I don't trust.
Why did you do it? I was gonna do it.
I was gonna do it. Why didn't you ask me to do it? Right? Why did you ask me to do it? So there's just this constant push and pull of having to do it all, and I'm like, oh, that's the only way to find balance, is that I can't do it all, and I have to know that, and I have to know what I do have to give to each one of those parts that I'm juggling to make that like, I want to make that into a Star Wars reference, but I'm trying to think about it, right? You've got,
juggling
the Force.
Death Stars. Does that work?
I mean, you've got the Force and you've got the dark side, right? And like, Jedis, if we think about like, I'm forgetting the names of people, but if you think about Luke Skywalker, right? Like he's got the dark side too. And it's finding that balance is like what makes us, you're not one or the other. So I think it's really important to let go of some of the shit, let others pick it up. I think I used to get, now we're getting really personal, but I
Oh,
used to get really, I used to be a little bit of a jealous person in everything. And like if someone did something else and got recognition for it, I was like, but why didn't I do that? I should have been the one to do that instead of like applauding the other. Um, and I think as I got older, had a kid, just learned more about life, realized like, actually, no, if that person wants to do that, I want to make sure I help them get there, applaud them, and then use that as well, right? Like
yeah,
learning to celebrate the accomplishments of others and leverage that as for yourself, right? Like we're all, I think it's that GitLab collaboration thing. You just feel so much better about it and knowing
yeah,
you can rely on other people for things, um, and knowing it's okay. Like
yeah.
the last anecdote on that, when I started in my role, and this is a shout out to my boss, Ryan O'Neill, he specifically left me out of things. And I remember having a really tough one on one with him where I was like, you don't think I can do it? You know, I was all defensive
Yeah.
and worried. And he was like, I want to make sure you get these things done first because these are the most important, right? Like it took me a minute to realize that it's like Maslow's hierarchy of need, and when it comes to balance
Yeah.
is you can't do that thing on the top if you haven't figured out this stuff on the bottom. So make sure I'm doing everything that I need to for myself and my team first before I start taking on more responsibility.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like that metaphor of juggling and just taking on more and more. And sometimes it feels like you're just keeping everything in the air. And as soon as you get something up and it's okay, another thing's coming down and you got to take care of it. And it's terrifying. It's absolutely
It,
terrifying.
exactly. And as humans, like we should live with a good amount of stress, which is why we should be juggling. But you reach that curve where it's no longer healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's easy for us all to get to that point. I think, especially when you work from home and you don't have the ability to just. I
Can't
tell my
tell
team
you.
all the time, I'm like, you're all alone in your room, which means in a room by yourself, which means your ego, your inner thoughts, like are gonna get the best of you at some point. And so you got to kind of check out of that because I think that adds to that pressure of more, more, more.
Yeah,
I'm not doing
yeah,
enough. Like, am
constantly.
I really not? Yeah.
I've forced myself to allow myself to do bike rides, even if it's
Forced,
like in the middle of the
allowed.
workday.
Yeah.
I forced myself to allow myself. Absolutely, I was like, PJ, it's okay. There's a rule at GitLab. You're a manager of your own time. You decide when you're working, as long as it all gets done, as long as the results are there. So if you're
Yeah.
gonna have lunch and you're gonna ride your bike a half hour out, have lunch and ride it a half hour back, and it takes an hour and a half total, are you still getting your work done? And if the answer is yes, then that's allowed. And I'm like,
It's okay.
right, but I'm leaving. And right, but should I maybe put Slack on my phone just in case so I can like reach? When I was a teacher, I had my work email on my phone and I would tell parents, hey, if you email me on the weekend and I'm at Disney, I'll write you back. That's not
Yeah.
healthy. That wasn't good.
No
Parents loved
boundaries.
it. I
Yeah,
was
of
everyone's
course.
favorite.
They're gonna take advantage of that, right? Yeah. Oh, it's so true. And it's something that like I'm no expert. Like I'm still struggling with it, right? I had like a meltdown on Monday because I hadn't slept and my kid was there. And when I'm trying to work and have my kid and everything, like
Yeah.
you have to you have to create kind of the commute, right? Like, okay, I'm done with work for
You.
the day, leaving it
Yep.
here. I'm going to commute to my living room now, right? To create that separation of that work and personal, because when the lines blur, which guilty, it's happened to me
Oh
and it
yeah.
happens over and over. That's when that balance is gone, when those lines blur,
Right.
for sure.
Right. And I know that I feel like a lot of GitLab team members, especially on my team, I'm on community relations. I feel like they are very open about telling each other, hey, are you taking enough time off? Hey, make sure that you're relaxing. Hey, it's the weekend.
Yeah.
My manager will, like, if someone takes PTO, he'll look at their contribution blocks on GitLab and be like, oh, big empty space. I love it. Good job.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's such a
Uh,
cool way to hold each other accountable for that.
Yeah, and like it's all in making sure that we are taking time for ourselves, because like work is work and it's great and it can be very rewarding, but you only get so many hours and you only get so much time. So it's nice to support each other and be like,
Yeah.
make sure you're enjoying your life, and doing the right stuff.
Yeah, it's actually more important than work.
It is, Because eventually you're not going to work at GitLab anymore, and eventually you're not going to work at the next company anymore. Like,
No.
you're going to be somewhere else, and it's important to do good work because it can fulfill you, and you can feel good about what you've done and you've created. It's way more important to take care of yourself first.
It's so much. And I think that's such a good point with balance too, is like work doesn't have to be your everything. I think in America, even in Europe, my partner struggles with this too, is like, I have to do something that I'm super passionate about, that I care about so much. I'm like, find something that excites you and challenges you, but doesn't take your everything. Because you need that balance. I think it's hard to find that. Some people do. Some people thrive in it, right? I think like musicians, actors, maybe, but it's a totally different lifestyle than working in tech, right? So I get my challenge, I get my satisfaction in the role that I'm in, but it isn't my everything, and I try to let it go at the end of the night or on the weekends. So
it can be hard, but it is rewarding when you do find that balance. Hailey, this first off, I can't believe that we're almost done.
That went way too fast.
I regret to inform you that the episode is almost over. This has been it feels really quick, but are there any final, I realize I've just been the small guy over here. You can see me again. Are there any final words? Maybe so. Actually, this is kind of fun. How about advice for people who are just getting started in either sales or in tech?
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I always tell my team is I make this metaphor, and I actually did it when I applied for the ASM role that I'm in now. I make this metaphor of surfing, right? So when I first learned how to surf, I was living in California, Northern California, San Francisco. Not the easiest place to learn how to surf, right?
Yeah.
It's gnarly. There's my California word for you. Like the undercurrent, the rip tides, like it's wild. The water is wild. It's terrifying. So there's always going to be, especially in tech, especially at GitLab, right? Things are always changing. There's always going to be a million things going on, right? There's all of this. Yeah. The best way to like swim through that, we would do what you turtle, which is like you take your board, you throw it over yourself, you go underneath where it's really calm. Instead of trying to like dive over, oh God, here's the next wave, right? Like, so it's try and find that calm. Try to find your place where you're swimming just below, where those things are happening and you can acknowledge them and you can understand what you need from them, but you're not getting swept into it, right? I think that is, especially in sales, especially in at GitLab, in tech in general, there's just so many things happening and getting thrown at you at any time that if you can find your calm water underneath those waves, that's your sweet spot.
Holy smokes. As a person living in a state with lots of surfing, I don't surf, but I definitely know about going underneath the wave in order to avoid all the chaos. So that's a great metaphor. Hailey,
I use it a lot.
I can't say enough good things about this show and about you having been on, and how much I really appreciate you taking a chance on, like, you know, getting in front of however many people are going to watch this and however many people are going to see the YouTube video. Just, you stood up and you said, yeah, let's talk about something amazing. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show and being here, and for your 3.5 years at GitLab. This is fantastic.
I was so excited when I watched Jessica's, and I just was like, oh, I want to do this. Partially because I just wanted to talk to you for an hour. So thank you for having me. Thank you for making it super easy. It was really an honor. And keep doing this. I will socialize and do what I can to pump it up.
I'm going to get some C-level people on here one day. It's going to happen.
Oh,
I mean, I think they all seem like they'd be down for it, honestly. All
right,
so. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming to meet the Tanukis, and we will see you all next time.
See